Welcome, everybody, to the Copiosis live stream. I am Perry Gruber, and I have with me our Chief Political Strategist, Christopher Hatton. Today, we are going to be talking about insurrection. And we've got an interesting... Welcome, everybody, to the Copiosis live stream. My phone is interrupting there. I had to turn the sound off there. And we're going to be talking about insurrection today. So, insurrection, it's a trending topic in the United States with populist anger and fomented resentment fueling what Americans think might be a second civil war. Is it actually going to come to that, or is it something else that is afoot? So we're going to be talking about that, and anyone who is joining us on the show today can join us in this conversation. We're going to be talking about what the insurrection means, what the future holds for politics, given what happened in the Capitol 2 weeks ago, was it, Christopher? I think it was 2 weeks ago. And what's going to happen as a result of those changes that are taking place. And who better than to have this conversation with us than Christopher Hatton, our Chief Political Strategist. If you're interested in finding out more about Copiosis and what we're doing to transform the world into a fabulous place for everyone, please feel free to visit our website down below there, copiosis.com. We have a fully blown website that describes our innovation and our transition plan and how we're implementing that transition plan to create a better world. If you're interested in finding out where the money goes that we use to make this transition happen, you can go to that second website, our Patreon page, and find out what our budget is, see where the money goes, and if you're interested, become a patron yourself for less than, actually for about $1, minimum $1 or $2 a month. Maximum, there's no upper limit. You can even give Bitcoin to Copiosis if you are cryptocurrency enabled. And then for those of you who are watching on the live stream, we are watching your comments and we'll include them in the conversation as we move forward. So the 3 people that are currently on, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, I want to encourage you to, oh, my screen is just a little bit messed up there. There we go. Want to encourage you to click that subscribe button, because when you do, you will be notified when we post new videos to our YouTube channel. And then also don't forget to click that bell, because that way you'll notified every time we post a video. We don't do it that often, so I promise we will not spam you. Okay, Christopher, so wow, what a difference 2 weeks makes.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity again, Perry, and I just want to say a couple of things. I think what happened the other day on the 6th was quite disturbing. However, it was almost predictable leading up to it. And I'd like to preface this whole thing by laying out a conceptual framework.
Please do, yeah.
To try to describe the events that led to that day and the event of that day. And I know we discuss these types of things on and off in our core group meetings and live streams, but I want to bring up 2 fundamental mechanisms of this conceptual framework. First one is what we call an emergent reality.
Yeah.
And the second one is the path of actual reality. And what emergent realities try to do are merge into the path of actual reality.
Yep.
And boiling it down further, the path of actual reality is interpretable to the individual. Hence why we have paradigms.
Yes.
So, and then further, even if an emergent reality merges with the path of actual reality, it doesn't mean it'll assimilate. So
good point.
So it's conceptual, but it's complex. So, and then emergent realities can be anything. So it can be a court case, a proposed law change, an idea or innovation. It can be somebody's opinion or somebody's outright lies. And that is, it's unfortunately where we live. and it's a nature of consciousness. But when these emergent realities actually merge into the path of actual reality and assimilate
Yeah.
To a like-minded group, action can be driven through that specific emergent reality. So, when it doesn't assimilate, that's why we have resistance to change. So you can explain these things out in a conceptual kind of conscious framework, but that's kind of the path I want to lay down before we get into any specifics here.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. So are you saying it sounds like you're setting the context for us understanding how politics has gone in the last 8 years, let's say, to create the situation we saw on the 6th?
yes, so it there are mechanisms which create what people are calling limbic resonance. So the limbic system in the brain, pretty much drives emotion, and then things like social media create this resonance from which this conceptual framework I just laid down can be amplified and weaponized.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different way of manipulation, and boiling it down, this type of manipulation was definitely used in a negative way.
Can
But
you describe what that looked like in real terms? Because you're describing almost like a scientific or a conceptual framework which allowed this to happen. But if you could overlay that on top of the reality we have seen over the last 4 years to kind of illustrate what you're describing, this limbic kind of like hijacking of the limbic system. Can you describe how that happened in real terms as you've seen it in the world?
yeah, so in the last 4 years specifically,
Yeah.
we have a rapid growth of independent media, which revolves around a certain, ideology and mindset from which, growth of this particular emergent reality can happen, with a group of people. So, you have everything from QAnon to Alex Jones to Shapiro to Candace Owens, creating this um, point of view, and
Hmm.
I'll be like a broken record. It is an emergent reality
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that people not only um, it triggers the limbic system when they hear these things, but then they start to believe that it is actual reality for everybody, um, which is it's not the case. Where that's one of the aspects is the independent media, and then backed by the mainstream media, which kind of you know we can argue how strong that influence is now, but I'd say it's still pretty strong.
Yeah.
But that's all dictated by the advisory board and the board of governors, and the people at the top dictate what comes down. And you have reporting on the actual news, and then you have commentary, and most of it becomes commentary, which is all opinions.
Yep.
So this is another emergent reality that's forming this giant, angst and resentment um, to a specific centralized manipulation tactic. So, and then further, when you add in President Trump not only putting down media itself, but promoting these independent media players, to then get the whole coalition focused on this emergent reality that is opinionated from a specific manipulation entity, that it begins to generate this scenario where action can be, you can be you know I'm
You can
blanking on the word.
you can shape the action you want to see by manipulating the emergent realities that you put in place. So you could say that the emergent realities are the personalities that you put in front of the masses. And because every human being is an embodiment of emergent realities, their own opinions, right? And so if you
Yeah,
select certain people and put them in places where they can communicate at a mass level, then you have a degree of control over the collective emergent reality that's going to occur. And so as we've seen, I'm kind of hijacking your description, but I think I got the momentum of where you're going. So if you select specific people to represent your entity, which is what the news media has done, then and you select also a certain person to endorse, such as a Trump or a Biden, it doesn't matter, then you're able to collectively orchestrate a collection of emergent realities that can influence the emergent realities of people that are watching the show, so to speak, which then can shape the collective emergent reality, which is kind of what we saw on January 6th with an eruption of boil over of the conflict of emergent realities in the field we call politics. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
that is the conceptual framework here. Yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
yeah,
built into an actual case. So,
yeah.
and then further, when you have the president of the United States standing in front of a crowd that he invited, whether it was, people say it was indirect, some people say
Yep.
it was direct, but when
Yeah.
the president said march on the Capitol,
He did say that?
and indirectly, and then
Okay.
when it was, and then it happened, you know, uh, it might be less conspiratorial than some people think,
What
because
do you mean by that? Are you saying are you defining a conspiracy as something that's hidden, and because he did it out in the public, it's not a conspiracy? Is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm trying to say, that there was a buildup. There was a 3-week buildup to this that was documented and everybody was following it.
Yeah.
Could that create what we call a false flag, or, malicious actors present there that then uh, was the driving force? Possibly, but when it's like, when it's that predictable,
Yeah.
it's more likely that something like that could be used as a window of opportunity to create this kind of situation. But again, um, when you have all of these opinions coming in that get you to think about the situation in multiple ways, it does make you think. But in general, I think this was very predictable, and I think that there's possibility that it could have been, conspiratorial, but
Well,
it's not.
yeah, yeah. Let's throw a comment in here. So Midnight Mechanic is saying, I've yet to see one news organization showcase all potential presidential candidates from all parties. And we saw in the last election how Andrew Yang, to some degree, was censored on MSNBC. There was a specific plan to try to marginalize his effectiveness in the election campaign. And so, if that is happening, what you're describing, this framework that you're describing, is certainly being played by all sides, and so there is evidence on all sides for what you're saying. Is that people? So who is doing the if it's not a conspiracy, because it is out in the open, it's plain for anyone who wants to see it. If it's not a conspiracy, what is it that these people are trying to do? The GOP for sure does not want to overthrow the United States and nullify the Constitution and turn it into some sort of a despot ruled nation. What is it that people are trying to do with all of this fomenting of resentment and, excuse the term, white grievance and Black Lives Matter on the other side, and all of these conflicting ideologies and limbic responses? What do you think people are trying to do with all of this?
Well, at a very basic level, they are expressing, what they think is horrible and what they think is good. At a more complex level, um, and more specific to the actual incident, um, putting into question whether or not our voting process, which is fundamental to our Constitution and our core, is viable anymore. So, I think that the pandemic situation, I know we've talked about this before, led to an increase of absentee voter ballots and early voting to the tune of 2/3 people didn't go to the polls to vote. And then that caused a bottleneck in the counting process, and everybody viewed that as fraud. And I'll tell you what I think the actual problem here is. Again, is an emergent reality. I believe we, as the United States and other powerful nations in the world, suffer from something called a supremacy fallacy. That we are indeed prepared to handle these kinds of things at all times. And what last year proved to me and many others that follow this concept is that that's not the case at all. We weren't set up to handle the early voting and absentee voting counting. We weren't handled with unemployment. We didn't handle the response to the pandemic in the right way. We're far from where people actually believe we are, and that's the facts, in my opinion. I mean, so that's a
Well, hang on a second. Let's clarify your opinion, the nature of your opinion, so that people who haven't seen this, seen our live streams before and don't know who you are, understand where you're coming from. Because you're not just winging out your opinions as facts, as like Joe Blow. You've got some background and education in this stuff. So just real quickly, before we go on our break, tell people professionally and educationally where you come from, so they understand that your opinions have some merit to them.
So educationally, I'm a policy scholar. I'm a scholar of power and influence, and I'm a scholar of business disruption. And then more recently here, I'm a scholar of classic rock first generation, but that's something beside the point.
Nice.
And so I have an undergrad in economics, and then a master of public policy and a master of business administration, and then multiple certifications in all those realms.
Right.
My day job is I work as a legislative director in the Michigan House of Representatives, so I'm pretty entrenched in state politics here, and I pay attention a lot to what's going on federally, and it's very near and dear to me, and it makes me pay attention to all of these aspects. But then in general, just as a kind of leveling point on all of this, and we're all guilty of this, but when we say in our own minds, I'm better, or this way is better because whatever your justification is, that's when everything breaks down. So, which is why I promote this global citizenship through open source platform cooperatives initiative, because you vote with your mind, not your feet. And that's a completely different concept than what people are used to, because you don't have to physically be anywhere to be able to vote. So,
well, isn't this the challenge that you're talking about? What is that phrase you used with supremacy in it? What was it
the
called?
supremacy fallacy.
The supremacy fallacy. Yeah. Isn't that what we're bumping up against? Because we're moving into a world where your influence and exercising of your influence is more mental now than it is physical, like with your feet. And as a result of our collective inability to keep up with that technology, if you will, we are seeing the disenfranchisement of a lot of people and the frustration that comes from experiencing that disenfranchisement, coupled with a system, the voting system, that cannot handle, at this point, cannot handle this new paradigm of exercising your influence, this mental aspect instead of your feet. And so the churn that we're seeing, this is so good because it's totally going in the direction of where I was hoping this show would go. And so the churn that we're seeing is the churn is the process whereby we move into the new reality, the emergent reality that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
That's right.
let's take a quick break. So for those of you who are tuning in new, this is the Copiosis live stream. We've got 5 of you guys. That's fantastic. If you're interested in finding out more about Copiosis, you can go here to copiosis.com and read all about our innovation and the transition plan that we're using to implement the innovation so that we create a world that works for everyone. And then if you're interested in finding out what we do with the money that people are giving us to move forward this innovation, you can go to this website and find out more about that. And there you can also become a supporter yourself for as little as $1 a month. If you haven't already, please feel free to to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you will get notified of new videos that we're loading. We're not loading a whole bunch all the time, so you will not be inundated with notifications. And then finally, if you are watching the show live, feel free to make your comments. We're going to be including those in the live stream as we move forward. So a lot of people, Christopher, are up in arms. There's a lot of people who are frustrated. There are a lot of people who are afraid. There are a lot of people who are excited about what's happening. Some are talking about a second civil war coming. I see all of this churn, as I said before the break, as the opportunity, the emergent opportunity for all of us to move into something that's contrary to what you said a minute ago, better, new and better, something that's going to be better than what we've had in the past. What's your thought on that?
I would agree. I would tend to agree with that notion that a window of opportunity has opened up to create substantial and impactful change in every system that exists that we use right now. And I'd further that argument by saying, you know, when we, what's a good way to put this? Like I don't prepare for these things. It's right off the cuff.
It's okay. So
So
same here.
more authentic that way, I think.
Exactly. Yes.
When we have this situation where, like I was saying before, people believe that they are better or this way is better, it creates this divide. And it's the division between us now that, I've argued before has existed since before we were even a country.
Yeah.
That, not only solidifying, but, amplifying this negative use of the emergent reality principle. So as long as we're on one side or the other, collaboration equates to reaching across the aisle.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, collaboration doesn't exist because it's a centralized entity, and I've argued this before with you, that is subject to the power and influence that surrounds it.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the individuals within the institution, but it's the power and influence that uses the institution as a tool that designs the path of actual reality that most of us assimilate to. So, and then on that, taking it a bit further. Further's my favorite word. When we start to see this collaboration explosion at the ground level, which is absent any of the power pillars, it gives me massive hope.
Me
that
too.
that can percolate up, up the power and influence chain, meaning I believe that we've just opened a window for third-party politics in America by what just happened. And what does that mean? That means that collaboration then becomes at this situation where we have multiple parties collaborating from their own points of view to get stuff done. And that's more like other countries around the world, but even further separated because, you can create new political paradigms quicker with the tools that exist now. So what is the main purpose of my argument here? I believe collaboration is one of the most powerful tools that we have as humans. And being able to collaborate through differences in opinion and through differences in culture and identity to, you know, increase, you know, to switch the paradigm from power and influence to raising standard of living for multiple people, then we start to see this separation of you know, political belief versus process oriented people, and that doesn't exist right now. Largely, right now it's my way's better because,
Yeah.
and that's who we've always been. But you know, the window is open, so
So let
people can say that, but I'm here to debate. So
no
let's
no
do it.
say that again. Say that last thing again. People can what?
Argue against that
Uh,
the concept, but I'm here to debate. So you know,
good. So I got let's real quickly run down for the audience what the power pillars are. We've talked about this before, but you know, people don't watch every show. So tell us a little bit about the power pillars, and then I'll bring in a couple of comments.
okay. So the main power pillars are uh, government, business, religion, nonprofit,
No.
and then we have an other. And things that go in other are, you know, personal power attributes, coercion and violence, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. So other has a lot of important pieces in it. Um,
School is not one of the power, or education, I should say, is not one of the power
well,
pillars.
that's a personal power, you
Gotcha.
know.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's a subset, and it's all, you know, we can go deeper into it in
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
Uh, but so
And
they
you're saying that people can leverage the power pillars to affect the emergent reality towards what they believe the emergent reality should be.
so not only leverage,
Yeah.
but you know, disrupt. So create absent power pillars,
What does that mean?
meaning that just means you know, society taking care of society. What
Gotcha. Right. Gotcha.
So right now we live in a society from which the power pillars design,
Yes.
and you know, it was that way because, you know, we depended on ourselves or each other to survive since the beginning of humanity. But my argument here is, you know, recently we're developing tools and technologies that are lifting those dependencies on ourselves and others to survive. So the more that happens, the quicker these emergent realities become assimilated across the board, across political divides, cultural divides, national divides, everything, because it's about your mind, not like me being a white male from America.
Yeah.
Me being a white male from America has nothing to do, you know, with my participation in a global platform initiative. So,
In fact, you could be a dog as long as you're participating, you're having some sort of influence, right? Your identity in physical reality doesn't really matter that much.
which brings me to the Festival of the Commons again.
Yeah.
You know, your participation alone not only increases your you know, net benefit, but everybody else's in that organization or festival. So it's a positive sum game, and people really don't pay attention to those because they're focused on the tragedy of commons, which means you have to have this cooperation to survive. But that's dependent on others. So
Right.
that's what I'm saying is that we are shifting that rapidly to lifting those burdens, and then it opens up the idea of abundance. But I know I'm getting into the
No,
weeds again.
you're fine because it dovetails nicely with this comment from KJ who says perhaps he's oversimplifying the issue, but to me it seems the basic conflict is over resources. And what you may be saying, Christopher, is that it's not really about resources, it's about perception. And if you perceive that resources are in short supply or scarce, then you end up in this position where you're feeling the need to leverage the power pillars and reach across an aisle because there's a divide that you perceive where some people want resources employed this way and you want them employed a different way. And so collaboration doesn't really occur that well. But if you see a world where it's not about resources, it's about a perception in the context of abundance, then you have a different kind of dynamic going on, one that looks more like collaboration and how did you call it? An assimilated emergent reality that takes into account the emergent realities of everybody rather than the dominant emergent reality of a few.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate goal, and that
Yeah.
solves a lot of the global grand challenges that we have now. But back to insurrection real quick.
Yeah.
I think we think this is a left versus right thing, but it's many different things. This is an urban versus rural thing. This
For
is
sure.
a history versus future thing.
Yep.
This is it goes. You can go deep as you want on any spectrum that revolves around the insurrection idea. But boiling it down to specific action as a result of specific action, specific manipulation tactics. This is going to be studied for a while. Dude Man with the Horns is going to be studied for a while in all aspects of political science
Well, so
policy.
let's clarify that for a second, because when you first did that, I thought you were talking about the devil, but you're actually talking about this guy who was caught on camera. Why don't you describe the picture so that people who didn't see it know what you're talking about?
So he's just wearing his hat that has horns on it, and it's a fur hat, and he's got tattoos on his body and his arms, and it looks like he's wearing this furry get up. I've heard it called like Chewbacca's bikini or whatever. But in all seriousness, that image is what the world thinks of us right now.
Yeah, we're a bunch of savages.
Right. Not only that, the stereotype is, and no offense to anybody here, but let's go shoot up another school and eat a Big Mac. That's what the world's America is. So us thinking that we're number one,
Right?
it doesn't hold anymore. So that's the supremacy fallacy, in my opinion.
That's the best illustration of the supremacy fallacy. People who think they are supreme, who think that America has exceptionalism wrapped around it, and then they dress like, well, how that person dressed and act a fool.
So anyway, my deepest, like, I have convictions, and if I am convicted enough, I will pontificate my points.
Please do.
One of my main points here is that this is not representative of humanity. This is representative of the system that America designed. Okay.
Well, so say more about that before you go to the next point, because if it's is it representative at this moment in time of America, though?
So I'd say back to the origins of our country, America was formed through a deep divide between England and the colonists.
Right, right.
So we set it up in a way where we believe that if there is this type of friction at the ground level, that will continuously improve over time through the slow, creep of legislation and bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So, and it made sense. And then people like Hamilton came in and said, we're going to be a trade-based country, and then we'll accept all the colonists' debt, and we'll be able to get loans that way. So, and then further, it's like, there's a whole blueprint to how we got to where we are today. And then Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin sitting down and the day after Jefferson penned out Constitution, and then Adams and Jefferson bringing up slavery, and then Benjamin Franklin, being astute in politics and knowing all the people, said, revolution is the matter at hand, not emancipation. So knowing that none of this would have existed had they tried to do emancipation then. So it's like, what? And then further, just the amendments themselves is just a correction to match the
changing
words
realities
over time.
Yeah.
So it's like they're fixes
Yeah.
of what our original intent. Oh, well, I mean, I can't say the original intent, but
Right.
the words of the Constitution
Right.
match actual reality, and that started to happen more. But we're not perfect. We're definitely not perfect, and it's that's why I say it's part of the system that we design, and it's not
Well,
representative.
yeah. So we're not perfect, that's for sure. Our system is not perfect, that's for sure. There's lots of room for improvement. And as Jennifer said in a comment, uh, they think you cannot take us seriously. I think she's referring to people outside of the United States looking at us and saying we can't take these people seriously when they're dressed like that and they're doing these things in the hallowed halls of the people's capital, as some senators and congressmen were saying. And so what is the way forward here? So we've talked about we talked about this emergent reality framework and the limbic response to what I will call blatant manipulation on many sides. We've seen the limbic response manifest in all kinds of movements. Black Lives Matter. Back in the day, it was the Tea Party movement. Now it's turned into Trumpism, kind of, and the armed militias. We've seen a lot of things happening right now, signifying that this is a momentous time in history and a wonderful place to be alive. By the way, what does this all mean relative to what we're trying to do? What not what we're trying to do, because we are doing it. What we're doing at Copiosis, and what does it portend for the future? So talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what you see as possible as the emergent reality called technological advancement merges with the supremacy fallacy that you're describing, and that merges with innovations like Copiosis. Where are we going, do you think?
So that's a great question, and that's kind of my thought process behind this global citizenship, digital citizenship, premise that I keep bringing up.
Yeah.
Is that more and more people are starting to engage in this open source initiative process because they realize that there are um, there are certain handicaps associated with current systems,
Mm-hmm.
that our leaders are broken leaders, and
Mm-hmm.
that if we're still posturing about nationalism and war threats, that there's definitely a better way to start with collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the people that don't want to see change, the traditionalists, the history preservers, they're not wrong. They just are fighting for what they believe is right or horrible.
Absolutely.
So it's about creating processes by which assimilation into actual path of reality that helps benefit the global society and the world can scale quicker than what the traditionalists managed to do through centralized media and now into independent media and manipulation tactics like what we've been seeing here. So
So kind of what you're saying is, if I may jump in, kind of what you're saying is the path is so good, if I'm speaking accurately here. The path the path the rate of change into the future is increasing as a result of the decentralization of influence. And the resistance we're seeing and the churn that we're seeing is the desire on the part of the centralized believers, so to speak, to try and keep control of something that they really can't keep control of, because the more decentralized the influence becomes, evidenced by social media and the ability of an individual to broadcast now through YouTube or other means, they're losing control of the ability to do that, which is good because it speeds up the process of change, which, using a word you used a little while ago, which has moved at a slow creep. And so the benefit is many more of us will get to benefit from the emergent future reality than before. Whereas before, when it was all centralized, things move so slowly in terms of progress that a lot of frustration gets pent up But the frustration that we're seeing now in the wake of this faster moving stream is human beings trying to accommodate themselves to this faster moving stream, whereas before the stream was kind of like a languid pond almost because progress moves so slowly with our political system. Is am I kind
No,
of in the ballpark?
that's right. And a really good example that's going on right now as we speak is an application called Signal. And
Yes.
Signal is what WhatsApp was supposed to be.
Yes.
WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook, and then they can access and use all that data to sell you things in a better way. But Signal is a 501c3.
Huh.
I know Elon Musk is the biggest donator, but I've donated money. And it's privacy focused.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Usually, like, sorry, my robot vacuum might make an entrance, so I might have to go check it out.
Okay.
Um,
You're such a
so,
futurist.
oh man, where was I? That distracted me.
That's okay. It's a good time to take a break because it's right at
Okay.
40 minutes. So for those of you who are, yeah, if you want to go into your thing, for those of you who are watching for the first time, this is Copiosis live stream. We're talking with Christopher Hatton, our chief political strategist for Copiosis, and we're talking about insurrection and what it means for the future. Let me tell you, folks, it means a lot of good things. There's a lot of good things happening as a result of what's happening at the Capitol. And so we're talking about that. We're talking about the 5 power pillars. We're talking about how these power pillars are breaking down in the face of overwhelming, let's call it grassroots influence enabled by technology. And you are watching the Copiosis YouTube channel. If you want to find out more about the shows that we publish on our YouTube channel, be sure to wrong button again, doggone it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then click the bell so that you're notified of new videos that we post. We have live streams pretty much every week. And then occasionally we have special live streams like this one. And then also, if you're interested in finding out more about our innovation Copiosis, the transition plan, and how we're implementing the transition plan to create this new emergent reality that we believe is better, you can go to copiosis.com and find out more there. Or if you're interested in finding out where the money goes that people are giving us to make this transition happen, you can go to this website on Patreon, find out more about our budget. And if you want, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. Lastly, if you are interested, we have a robust presence on Facebook in our Copiosis social group where you can interact with people on Facebook who are talking about what we're doing to implement Copiosis, what our strategy is all about, what our roadmap is, and the actions that we're taking in the implementation process. So thank you for joining us. Please subscribe. All right, so Christopher, are you back on track? Did you get that robot taken care of?
I did. I paused it. So
Okay.
so I remember I was talking about the Signal app, but I had this tangent I wanted to go down. I can't remember, but maybe it'll pop up.
Okay.
But so the growth in the Signal app has shown to the world at this point that people believe in privacy. And so, for instance, when people now use things like VPNs and Tor and privacy apps, people are like, oh, they're trying to hide something. But what if you think about the promise of it? What if it's just like, I don't want data collectors to access my information anymore, just endlessly.
Yeah.
Um,
Or at least
so
reward me for the collection, for the benefit that you're getting from the data I'm generating on your
so
platform.
that's a good point, and I have a thesis on that.
Yeah, throw it down.
So I believe that there's this convergence of 5 different technologies that will result in a situation like that. The first one is decentralized VPNs. Decentralized meaning that there's no data collected, and the only data that actually can be collected is the entrance into and the exit out of from the ISP. But anything in between cannot be collected.
Interesting.
The second one, if anybody's heard of the Brave browser, they have this new feature where you can open a new tab in Tor, which is Tor. And again, people are like, oh, people just use Tor to do nefarious things, which isn't a false statement. But what can be the promise of that?
Well,
If we can build. if we can,
Oh,
sorry, if we can
that's okay.
build,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
if we can build that into the system where it's automatically used, then you start to create these gaps in time for that constant stream of data collection to the data collectors. But the third tech is anonymous blockchains, and the invention of Monero created this first anonymous blockchain, which is not only does it scramble, well, it's DVPs and Tor are a prerequisite to be able to use it, but then it scrambles data even further, and timestamps, so you don't know when it happened either.
Mm.
And then anybody who tries to access that blockchain, their information then gets recorded, so you're looking right back at them. The fourth technology is deepfakes, and right now we're seeing deepfakes being used as part of this manipulation tactic.
Yep.
But again, what if that can be used to benefit you?
Yeah.
So a deep fake being created from which data collectors can access, well, your true data is being protected behind this DV4 and anonymous blockchain mechanism.
Yeah.
And then the thing that would facilitate all this is your personal AI agent, which I know we've talked about
Yes,
before,
we
but
have.
an
Yeah.
agent-centric mechanism by which deepfakes can be created, data can be protected with these new mechanisms, and the AI agent can then go negotiate with government, business, and other entities to mutually benefit access to that data. So you are then compensated by that data. So then the person themselves becomes the product, and we go from a geocentric model to a heliocentric model. If the sun is the customer,
Yes.
geocentric, the sun revolves around the
Well
earth.
said. Yeah.
Centric is everything revolves around the customer,
Yeah.
and that's
Love
what
it.
it is. People don't see that,
Well,
because it's
let's
hard.
well, let's give them a break because it's like the first usually the first um, consumer of new technology are especially technologies that are emergent and foster some level of privacy are those who do nefarious things. I mean, and you could call porn, for example, as one of those things. So, like, porn was one of the biggest users of the internet when it first came out, and so but as the internet grew, more and more application usage occurred. Porn still uses it to a significant degree, but now it's useful for so many others. And the same thing with could be said for any privacy enabled or privacy centric platform like Signal. So it's interesting when I was introduced the way I was introduced to Signal. I do one-on-one spiritual mentoring in addition to Copiosis, and one of my clients was is going through a divorce, and he didn't want his wife to know that he was having spiritual mentoring. And so he wanted to have his sessions occur on Signal instead of Skype because of the privacy. And at first, I felt the way you said, speaking about Signal, that okay, he just wants to protect his privacy. But there were some legitimate reasons why he wanted to protect his privacy because he didn't want his wife to use what we were talking about in our sessions to his disadvantage in the divorce proceedings. And so it makes total sense. And it's funny because I think a large contribution to Signal's growth was Elon Musk's tweet recently to use Signal. And
Oh,
then, yeah, and then, of course, a lot of conservatives, or let's say populists, are running towards places like Signal because they're being booted off of the privately owned platforms that are more public in nature. So yeah, and those
so
forces. Go ahead, yeah, jump in.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, um, you know, this is when I said earlier that, oh, I think my way is better because, you know, the result of that is, some people would call it authoritarian measures. Some people would call it protection of our interests,
Yep,
on the other side of the spectrum.
yep,
And in general, I'm completely against censorship in any way. But what we've seen here now is a collaboration between government and business that has completely silenced a group of people.
yes,
And that, in my opinion, is concerning, regardless of who the people are. So, and I know people are up in arms just from that comment, and that's fine, but again, that's it identifies our inherent divide that prevents us from seeing the promise in the world. So just final thought on all of that. Yeah, so we're creating mechanisms by which we can emancipate ourselves from data collectors, because
And
people are,
well,
yeah,
and emancipate ourselves from the power pillars also, and kind
yes,
of replace the power pillars with that other category, which includes all of the personal power that individuals have, not tied to one's um, necessarily tied to one's geographic location. And so you're by providing that level of emancipation, not only do you free the person, the individual, but you make that individual far more influential in their ability to interact with others around the globe, which brings us back to your statement of global citizenry. And what I find so fascinating, and maybe you can shed some light on this, uh, given where you come from politically. What I find so fascinating, Christopher, is how some Americans, identifying themselves as patriotic Americans, resist the idea of them joining the global citizenry.
so in general, there is a misconception, in my opinion, that globalism and global collective has started to equate to this new world order
Yeah,
type, um, you know, uh, concept. And we do have world infrastructure, and we do have world governing, entities like WHO, WTO, and we do have glimpses of that in the world. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen at all, because what I mentioned earlier, this collaboration that we're seeing at the ground level through the open source community is creating this pathway by which people in individual countries, with their own culture, religion, all the differences amongst us, um, can work on the same initiative, transcendent of all those differences,
yeah,
you know, and contribute to a decentralized, collaborative platform initiative where more standard of living increases can be realized than what government or business can provide,
yeah.
and quick. So there's a misnomer here: the centralized versus decentralized aspect, and I would argue that the decentralized aspect is going to grow much faster, and innovation is going to become decentralized as well. So not just like in Silicon Valley or in Hong Kong, and then it's going to be, once we have things like Starlink, proliferating internet access across the world,
Yeah.
I think that they'll offer a free version. But then that also goes into say, okay, but will that create a bunch of siloed information? And I don't believe it has to be that way from the mechanism I just mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
There's going to be ways around that. And
Hmm.
right now, we have to manually engage in those ways, just like downloading Signal. But my argument is we build new systems that have that embedded into it, possibilities just explode and freedom explodes, and we
Yeah.
don't have to argue
Yeah.
about exposure and identity and everything. But
Or
that's
or resource distribution, as KJ was saying earlier. It's like, is it really about resource distribution or conflict over resources? Is what KJ said, and it's not really. It's about the perception, and it's like I would argue that most of the people who broke into the Capitol have no trouble feeding themselves or finding medical care, whether it's a Band-Aid or a doctor's visit or a roof over their head or any of the other necessities and even luxuries. None of these people are struggling significantly to get those things, but they perceive that those things and their personal liberty are at threat. But it's just a perception. They're living in abundance, but they perceive different from the abundance. And what you're saying, I believe, is this concept of global citizenry unveils the facts which is we're all in abundance and we can all collaborate to increase the abundance for everyone, which goes back to that festival of the commons idea. I totally
Yeah.
get it. And that's what
So
copiosis is all about.
yeah, and then language is a big piece here. So global citizenry matches more with New World Order and strong
It
centralized,
does.
where uh, digital layer of citizenship matches more with this decentralized aspect. And in 2018, the first blockchain baby was born in Tanzania, and so now, what does that mean? That
Yeah,
means
what
that
does that mean exactly?
her
What is a
her
blockchain
identity
baby?
her identity was imprinted onto the blockchain. So everything that we would have on a birth certificate is now on the blockchain. And that started to grow. So there's many, there's millions of babies now on that blockchain.
Huh.
So what does that mean? It's open source. And the next step is politically allowing. So if countries allow that to be used as papers, then we start to see digital sovereign ID as a real thing. And then identities cannot be stolen.
Boy, that just blew my mind, the idea of birth certification on the blockchain, because that does open the door for everything else that personally identifies you as being on the blockchain. And if you as that's created, I presume that child owns that data, right?
That's right.
It's not sitting in a government record of birth. It's sitting in that person's whatever it is. Where would that sit on in a person's ownership? Would that be on a hard drive somewhere, or?
That's on the decentralized computer. So that's on the it's well, specific blockchains in general, but the Ethereum blockchain as a whole is about to upgrade, and it itself is a decentralized computer. So it's all a decentralized. So this is not centralized at all.
Right, I get that. So when an infant is born and their birth certificate and other data, like their health record, for example, goes onto the blockchain, they're not they're not aware enough to like pick up a device and manipulate, take a look at their data. So as they get older, where they can manipulate that device, it's kind of decentralized, encrypted across all devices, kind of, so that then when they're old enough to tap into that data, they can use their device to get it.
So here's the thing. My
Yeah,
my 3-year-old is better at me than the video games I was playing as a teenager.
right,
So
right.
it's not going to be old before they know what they're looking at.
I get it.
And
I
that's what
get
I'm
it.
about to say. Everything is about to change, including how people learn and how quickly they learn.
Yeah,
I think our centralized systems have created this mechanism by which, we got to prepare people to have jobs, in this. But if we don't know what jobs are going to be out there in 5
right,
years, we have to reevaluate the system as a whole.
right, right.
So I'll just conclude a thought on insurrection here
Okay.
is that we have a situation where through the technologies that exist right now and how people use those technologies, they can be put it into a formula, an algorithm that can, drive action at the other end. So whether it was conspiratorial or not, there's a lot of anger against the way the system exists now. So people just want to burn it down. But I say that there's another way that can avoid all of this destruction, and that's through decentralization. And that, the technologies largely exist now. And, I go through the 7Ds all the time, and we can have a whole, live stream on that and go through a bunch of different technologies and where they are in that process. But the change, again, this is a broken record with me, but the change is apparent,
I
and not
agree.
everybody catches on to that change.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of those people might not ever catch on to that change. So it's
And
about
that's okay. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. That's
Yeah, it's okay. Well, thanks for being with us today, Christopher. This was an awesome, dynamic conversation with lots of engagement on the live stream. So I appreciate everybody who watched live with us. We've been talking about insurrection in America and the wonderful things that are going to flow from that attempt. We see it as all positive here at Copiosis, and we're excited about more of it because, as Christopher has laid out in this last hour, there is a lot of good things coming, a lot of good things here being implemented that are leading to those better things, and the world is just getting better and better. So we appreciate you watching the show. We appreciate you commenting. If you want to find out or be in tune to other shows we're going to be publishing, and probably, Christopher, we should do a 7D conversation next. Be sure to click that subscribe button so that you are alerted when we have, oops, I keep doing that, when we have more new shows scheduled, more live streams and more videos that we publish. And then if you're interested, go to our website and find out more about our innovation and transition plan and how we're helping to create this new emergent reality that will emancipate us all. And then finally, if you're wanting to find out more about how we're making this thing happen and what we're using funds that people are giving us to make this happen, go to this website and find out more there. And you can also become a patron and support the work that we're doing here at Copiosis. Christopher, it's been a pleasure as always. Let's do that 7D conversation. I think it's a great idea. Maybe we'll schedule that in a couple of weeks or maybe even next Saturday. Who knows?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great week, rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time.